Let's get started with a brand new page. We're going to have a single Flexbox container over here, and into it I'm going to add in a child container. It will make sense in a moment. On our parent container, just make sure it's a 1/140 or whatever size or width you want to go for. And I'm going to go and set my padding on here to be a 20 on the left and right, just so it comes in a bit. Now, because it's 1/140 minus 20, that means my estate inside of here is going to be 1,100. Now, into this container, I'm going to go and drop in another one like that. Now, why have I got container inside a container? Because this container is going to contain the background image. I could drop in an image, but I want to have text over the background image. Why am I not using the parent container for my background image? Well, quite simply, if you were to go to the parent container here, and I go and drop in a background image now, it's going to go across the full width. It doesn't matter if I've set the box width to be 500 or whatever. That image is going to go all the way across. It's just the way the parent containers work. Whereas if I have a child container inside, I can now go to this child container. I can ensure it's a Flexbox, make sure it's set to be full width. So it's now the full width of the 1,100 after you take into account the padding, right? And I can go over here now and say, right, make the VH of this be 60. And now when I set my background image, it will just be inside of there. I'm going to pick that image. Can you see the image is now inside that estate? Let's just set it to be a no repeat. And we're going to go for a cover, center right. I'm now going to go over to my hamburger and I'm going to give this a background color so that we have like a grayish background. And there'll be a banner and bits that are in white and obviously images, but some of the words will just sit on a grey background. I'm going to go to site settings after you hit the hamburger, go down over here to where I have my background and where we've got the colour. I'm going to pick a global colour and I've got F4, F4, F4. I quite like that colour. F3, F3, F3 is pretty good as well. And let's now drop in some items. Let's go to the container, hit the grid, and I'm going to drop in a heading and I'm going to drop in another heading because let's assume you got a header 1 and a header 2. And then I'm going to go and drop in a button. First thing I'm going to do is modify the text, change what you want to say over here. Now let's start stylizing this out. First thing I'm going to do is go over to my container, go to my layout. By the way, I'm in the child container and I'm now going to centralize those items. When I say centralize, I mean push them down. The second thing I'm going to do is stop the words going all the way over our person of interest, our focal point. So staying in my container, I'm going to go to the advanced tab and over here, I'm going to change this to be a percentage and I'm going to add in a value just for the right hand side, 50% on the right and 5% on the left, just to push things away from the edge and also to try and stop it crossing over. Back in the layout tab, I'm also going to add in a bit of gap and I'm going to go for about 20 like that, just to space out our rows. Now let's stylize our headers. So I'm going to go to the style tab. Obviously, you would make sure it's a H1, a H2. You got to make sure you smuggle in your keywords once you've decided what you're going to go for search engine optimization. I'm not going in depth into that. It's more about creating this so that you get to understand how you could do it to work for you. We're going to go and change our color to be white. Now, in terms of typography, this is using a custom loaded font railway. I've already done that. You would go over to Elementor, go to custom fonts, and you would custom load them. There's various ways you can go and get a WAF to font, and I strongly recommend you do that and you stop using Google Fonts if you care about page speed optimization. We're going to go and set the weight of this to be 700. I'm going to now go and set the REM size for this to be a 5. In fact, it won't be a 5. It's going to be a 4 in fact, because in Elementor, your root HTML is 16. So when you do 4 REM, basically 1 REM is 16 pixel, 2 REM is 32 pixel, 4 REM is 64 pixel. You kind of get the idea there? So you have to kind of bear in mind what size you're going for. But I'm going to go with a 4 REM on the desktop. And when we get over to the mobile, I'm going to go with a 2 REM. Now, what I recommend you do is get rid of all of your values like that and instead go over and use our font clamp calculation generation tool. The link is in the video description. And what you want to do is pop those values in and it will give you a formula, which means as you grow and scale your screen size or your resolution, your font will grow and shrink accordingly as well. So here's our tool. We're going to leave the root HTML as 16 because that is what it is for Elementor. I'm going to leave my minimum screen size at 380 and my maximum I'm going to set as 1100. What that means is that our maximum and minimum sizes that we're going to add, it scales between that. So when we get to 1100, I do not want you to go above 4 REM. So I don't care how big your screen is, the maximum size of that typography will be 4 REM. So I'm going to go here and change these values to be REM, and I'm going to pop in my value. So we're going to go with a 2 and we're going to go with a 4, and you will notice the formula has changed. I'm now going to copy that formula, change this to be the pencil symbol. You must do this on the desktop. If you've got any values in there for the tablet or mobile, eradicate them, kick them out. Add in that formula, nothing's really going to happen. Get rid of the semicolon and the bracket, the curly bracket at the end. Go all the way to the beginning, and where you have the word clamp, get rid of everything before that. That is now 4 REM. When you get to tablet, it shrinks down. When you get to mobile, it goes to 2. So the tablet is automatically calculating what size it needs to be. Now, one of the tips I would strongly recommend, though, is that when you are doing this, you also go and do your line height as well. Go back over to your tool, and whatever is your minimum and maximum, I like to increase by 0.3. So 2 goes to 2.3, 4 goes to 4.3. Now, on different page builders, or if your root HTML is different, you might need to play around with that. So if your root HTML was a 10, you might want to go with like 0.5. Whereas if you're on a 16 pixel root HTML, which is what Elementor is as standard, then 0.3 works perfectly fine. Copy that formula, go to your line height, make sure you got the pencil, paste in the formula, get rid of the curly bracket and the semicolon at the end. Go all the way to the beginning of your formula and get rid of everything before the word clamp. Set the font to be a white. It's still going to be railway. I'm going to set the weight to be 500. Test out my REM. So I'm going to go with a 2 for the desktop, and I'm then going to go for a 1.8 for the mobile. So I'm going to get rid of that number 2, so we've got no value in there. Go back over here. Pop this to be 1.8, make the maximum value be a 2, go and paste it in, get rid of the semicolon and the curly bracket at the end, and then everything before the word clamp. You will get used to it. Why do I give you all of this extra text if I keep saying delete it? It might be that you want to copy all of that into like a custom CSS sheet, and you want to do it automatically for H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, all of that, your margin, your padding. You could even use it for images. Now for our button, this is going to be a really simple one. I've gone and changed the text. You're obviously going to pop in a link. It might go to a menu anchor somewhere down the page or another page. That's entirely up to you. We're just going to very quickly stylize this with a background color. And in this scenario, I'm just going to make the button be a 1.1 REM. I'm not bothered about whether you're on a tablet or a mobile. I want it to always be a 1.1 REM. And I'm going to set this to be a 700 as well. Now, this text is not very legible at the moment because it's fighting for attention with the person of interest. We're going to go back to our child container, go to our styles, scroll down until we get to background overlay. And we're going to click the gradient symbol, and we're going to add that in. I'm going to set my color fully transparent, and my first color to be a bit of a brownish shade, but not a full-on dark brown. I'm going to set the location for both of these to be 50%, just so I get that hard line. But I've set my angle to be 90, so you can see what it's doing there. I'm going to reduce the strength of the opacity to go to about 0.9, so it's not full-on, but we can still see through it. And then I'm going to blend it. So where we have our first color, I'm going to reduce that down to be about 5%. And where we have the second color, if I push it outwards, it starts to go over the person. The more I bring it inwards, it actually works better. So I'm going to go to about 40%. Now, before we move on, we do need to check how this is all going to look on the mobile. So when we jump over to the mobile, there are two big problems. The fact that the text is right up against the upper and the bottom border. And number 2, the image, the person of interest, is pushed all the way over to the left-hand side. Let's go and sort that out. The first thing we're going to do is go over to our container, the child. And if you look over here, the image has got some like hashtag pattern going all over it. That means we can swap the image out. So here's what you want to do. Click choose image, and you want to add in a copy of this image. And that's what I've done here. Next thing I'm going to do is click edit image. So we're going to scale it to be about 600 or 700 in height. And then we're going to make the width be about 500. So we can position it almost like a portrait style image exactly where we want. First thing we're going to do is scale this. So I'm going to go and say, set this to be 700. And when I scale it, it's now modified that to be 700 in height. I didn't touch the width. I only did the height. When you've done that, go and hit back because now it has saved it. If you go and do what I'm going to do next, which is crop it without going back, it kind of eradicates the scaling. So you might think you scaled it, but it's forgotten it and jumped straight to cropping. So go back, hit edit image again, go and hit crop, go and drag that inwards. And now you can see what it's doing to the value over there. Can you see that was changing? Set that to be 500. And now I'm going to position it to be something like that. And now I'm going to hit apply crop, save edits. You've got to do it in that order. Okay, we now have our landscape version and we have a bit more of a portrait. I mean, it is like a wide portrait, but it is still a portrait. And I'm going to hit select and you can see what it's done straight away. Now, obviously over here, the text is still looking really, really big. So I'm going to go back over to my desktop and I'm just going to really quickly modify that. So I've adjusted my formula to go from a 1.6 on the desktop to a 1 on the mobile. And I've also made the background overlay be a little bit darker just so it works a little bit better. And that is now looking okay. And when you go over to the mobile, that is looking fine as well. Let's now work on our next section. Add in another container and we're going to kind of follow the same rules we did before. It's flexbox, it's box, it's 1140. And over here, I'm just going to go and add in a 20 on the left and right like that. I'm going to add in 30 from the top. I'm going to drop in another container inside and I'm going to make sure it is a full width. So it's the full 100%. Now into this container, I'm also going to add in a background color. Remember, if you went and did it over here, it's probably going to stretch all the way across, which is not what I want. So into this container, which is currently 30 away from the top and the 20 and left and right, because we did it on the parent container. Remember, that's where we did that. This child container hasn't got anything set yet, except the fact that we've set it to be a full width. We're going to go to the style. I'm going to give this a background color of white. Then into here, I'm going to drop in a logo and a nav menu. So I've clicked icon and I'm going to hit WordPress menu. Click on the child container, go to your layout, and instead of having it defaulting to the column vertical, I'm going to set it to be a row like that. I am then going to hit the align item. So did you see that? The text moved down. Look at it again. It moves down. And I'm then going to say space between. And what will happen is you got the icon on the left and the menu on the right. Don't worry, I'm going to move the screen up in a moment. In fact, I'll just go here and I'll just add in about 1,000 like that, just so we can see things a little bit better like that. There we go. Right, so going back over here, I'm going to change my menu to be the cons menu, which is a fake one I've made up. I'm not doing any menu anchors and I'm not creating any extra pages, but I'm just showing you how you could use this effect. Really, really quick and easy, okay, because you should be familiar with this by now. Just go over to your style, go to your typography, go and set your size and go and set your color. You may want to use a formula, or you may be very prescriptive and you say, no, it's always going to be a 1.1 REM. Don't care what screen size you're on. I'm going to go with a 500 over there. And then you would go and set your line height, your sizing, you know, your drop down, your toggle button, or you're going to have a different size font there if you had a sub menu. The important thing is what we do over here with the icon. I'm going to go and upload 4 SVGs. So I've got 3 icons and I've got a logo. This logo was actually created in Canva, saved as an SVG. Then I went into vectorizer.ai and I converted it into a much more crisper SVG. You can do all of this for free. So I've gone and added in my logo and it's going to look really small and weird at the moment. You would obviously set a link to your homepage or to wherever else you want it to go. The key bit though is to get it to size properly. So you want to go over to style. Over here it says fit to size. Go and click that. If you don't click that, you get this like lots of empty space above and below, even though it is only that big as a horizontal image. Hit fit to size. And then you can now start to size it up accordingly. I'm going to go with a 40 pixel. Now, in hindsight, I should have made the letters of the name there, Jack Darley, be bolder. That's my mistake when I created in Canva. I should have taken account of that. Now, on the child container, I am going to add in a little bit of padding because the logo is very cramped up against the left and a little bit to the top and bottom. So I'm going to say give me 5 on the top and bottom so we get a bit of breathing space. And I'm going to say on the left-hand side, give me about 10 there. And we might as well... You can get away with it, if I'm honest, over there with the menu because you already have a bit of a gap. But if you feel like you want to add in a bit more, go for it. If not, you can get away with it. Go to the mobile drop-down option. You would then toggle it to be on the right-hand side. I would say definitely make it full width because otherwise when you open the menu, it doesn't open properly. So you could stylize that a bit more. And I would probably say while we're here, let's just go and modify the style and size of this because that is now looking a little bit big. I think that looks a little bit better like that. The gap over here, again, do you like the gap for that header? Because at the moment it is set to be 30 from the top. You might want to reduce that. Now, the key thing, though, about this header is it's going to stick as you scroll. So I'm going to go to my parent header, or the parent section, go to motion effects, and down here where it says sticky, I'm going to set that to be top. And that's basically it. Now let's go work on our next section. I'm going to get rid of that 1000 that I added in there, and I'm now just going to duplicate this one like this. And then I'm going to get rid of all of the contents inside. So I'm going to open this up, get rid of that container that we have inside. The reason I duplicated it is because it's got the 1140 and it's got like the 2020 and the 30 as well. It'll be really cool when Elementor introduce a bit of a global class system. Now, if you want, you could drop in a new heading and a bit of text in here, or you could just pick up something you've already got. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it in. Obviously, the color is completely wrong. Let's go to the style. Let's go and give it a darker color, which is a 222222. I'm going to make the typography of this be thinner. I'm going to leave the formulas that we have in here because it's basically the formulas I wanted to have. So we've got 1.1 and 1.6. And for the line height, I actually went up by 0.4 to 1.5 and 2. So I've added in 0.4 to the minimum and the maximum. Let's go and change the text. I'm going to drop in a text editor, change the text, go over to my style, make sure it's got the color of choice. And for the typography, I'm going to go with an REM, and I might just go with a 1.1 because it's 16 pixel. I find with Railway, 16 pixel or 1 REM looks a little bit titchsky. And I think 1.05 or 1.1 is a little bit more easier on the eye. And then you just want to play around with like how bulky do you want to make the text. And I do think that 300 light on Railway is quite easy to read. Believe it or not, if that was a white background, the 300 light might look a little bit too faint. But the minute you add in a grey, it's something about the newspapery effect. It works a little bit better. Now, if we go back to our intro, this is set as a 1140. I'm going to bring this down to be 820 in width. I'm going to go over to my gap, and I'm now going to say, give me about 20 over there like that. So what we now have is a little bit of an intro going on. Let's go and check how that looks in the mobile, and that's looking okay, I think. Let's go and duplicate this section again, get rid of the header, get rid of the text editor as well. Let's rename this one to be services. And you can see how you're now just regurgitating something you've already done before. Let's go and set this one up to be a 1140 again. Remember, it's got the 30 margin and the 20 on the left and right. Into here, we're going to go and drop in an icon box. And my recommendation when you're doing this is if you're going to have 3 of these, go and duplicate it, go to the parent container, set it to be a row, because now you can start to visualize how it's going to look. If you build one, and you're trying to make it perfect, if you don't know the parameters of the width and the height, you might make it look really good. And then you add in more and go, oh, I've got to readjust it now. So go and add them in from the get-go. Let's now go over to this first icon box, go over to our advanced tab, and I'm going to go and add in a bit of padding. I'm not going to do it on the top, but I am going to say 40 on the bottom, 40 on the right, and 40 on the left like that. And then let's modify the style. Set our size. Now I'm going to say it's 1.1 wherever you're on the desktop, the tablet, or the mobile. And the weight of this will be 500. And then when we go over to the description, make sure it's got the right color. It's going to be an REM of 1.1 again. And this time we're going to make it be a 300. So it kind of ties in with everything you've done above. Just go and sort out the size of our icon because it's looking pretty damn small. And I'm going to go for a 120 like that. Now the space with the gap from where it is from the title is a little bit big, so I'm going to shrink that down. Popped in a -5 just to bring it closer. Well, that's looking okay. Let's now check how that looks on the mobile. The size is fine. We have got a lot of padding going on there, so I might want to adjust that. So let's go over to the advanced tab, zero that all out, and instead I've gone for 25 on the left and right. I felt like 40 on the left and right was a bit too much. That's now looking okay. What we can now do is get rid of the other 2 that I'd gone and added in, and instead now duplicate this. Because once you've created your perfect icon box, you just go and duplicate for how many ever you want. And that's looking pretty good. And you'll notice on the mobile, everything's looking okay. And when you scroll to the top, that becomes a sticky header. Yes, you have got a gray space over there. If you want to make it full width, you can do. But I'm just going to go and... Because look, what you could do is if we go over to the header, you might decide you don't like that on the mobile. So if I get rid of it, it's now going all the way across. But when you go over to the desktop, you still have the 20 on the left and right. So you can make it be a complete full width if you want like that. I actually think it looks okay. So we're going to pop that back in. And when you get down over here, you've got these nice icon boxes. Right, we're going to rattle through now. Let's go and add in a button underneath here as well. So we've got icon box, icon box, icon box. If I was to now go back over to my hero banner, make a duplicate of that button, and I now bring it down to sit in the same section as my icon boxes, can you notice the button has gone all the way over there? The reason for that is because our section, or our container in a way, is currently set as a row. So everything's just going to keep adding on like in a line. What you want to do is go and enable wrap. Now, when you do wrap, this happens. And at this point, you're going to go, well, now it's just gone bust. It's gone all over the place. What's going on here? What you need to do is now set the width. So I'm going to go over to my icon box, go to my width, go and click custom. I'm going to set this to be 33.3%. I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to paste the style over the other two icon boxes. So they're all 33, 33, 33%. We now go over to our button. Look at where it is. Because now, because the other three items occupy nearly 100%, because 33.3, 99.9, this is clearly more than 0.1 or whatever percent. Because of that, it now shoves over onto the next line. But I want it to be in the center. So I'm going to go over to my parent container, and over here where we have justify content, I'm going to hit that, and it's moved it over. I don't like the gap that we've currently got going on over here, so I'm now going to push the button up a little bit, go over here, and I'm going to get rid of that gap because we copied this container over from a previous one. So now we've got our button over there, and again, it's looking pretty nice and clean. Let's start another new container, and we're going to fly through this now. This is going to be a flexbox with 2 child containers. Let's go and set our parameters 1140. Let's go and set our top to be 30 margin from the top and 20 on the left and right. This is really, really simple now what we're going to do. I'm then going to go and set my layout to have a column gap 30. Creates a 30 gap inside of there. In our first container, I'm going to drop in some text, and it's really easy for me just to copy some previous one and drop it in. Why? Well, it's got like the REM inside of there, and it's got the text, and it's got the typography. I'm going to go to the child container, go to the advanced tab, and I'm going to set in some padding of about 40. Just so that we have some nice breathing space. I'm then going to set the background of this to be white. Now, before I continue on to child container number 2, I'm going to go back over here, and I do feel like the 30 is way too small. So I'm going to go with an 80 just to push it down a little bit. Into our second child container, I'm going to drop in an image. Do make sure, though, that on your second child container, you've zeroed out the margin and padding, because if you don't, it has a bit of a gap going all the way around, which might not look so good. Now, I could, if I want, go and add in a background image, but then you got to modify the height of it. And sometimes it's easy just to drop in an image, go and pick your image, and we'll go with this one here of him drinking some tea. And I'm going to set it to be a full resolution. And basically, I now have my image like that. Let's go and check how that looks on the mobile. Oh, sorry, by the way, I forgot because I went and wrapped it. Can I go back a step? So this container over here, we set to be 33.3, set it to be 100%, and then copy the style of that and paste it over the other one. Sorry, my mistake. I rushed a little bit there. Whenever you do wrap, make sure you go and adjust it to make sure it looks okay. Right, now back into the mobile over here, we've got our text. The padding of 4040 is now way too big, so I'm going to drop that down to be a 20 inside like that. We've got our image. That's looking fine. But let's go and create a bit of gap. So I'm just going to go in and say, give me about 30 like that. So we now have our text and we have our image as well. Now, you may feel like just having text like that isn't so great. Just click into the container, go and drop in a heading, readjust it to sit over it, go over to your child container, set your gap, change your weighting, your REM, all of that, and that's all good to go. And obviously check it in the mobile. Now, you will notice a bit of an issue. Notice how that is not now going all the way to the bottom. Now, there's 2 ways to get around this. The first thing is to go to the image and go and adjust the height until you get it to be roughly the size you need it to be. Set the object fit to be cover, otherwise it will skew it. That's method number 1. Method number 2, though, is that instead you could have added in a background image to the container. So this container, at the moment, there is no height, right? It's a 50% like the first child container. Instead, we're going to go to the style, go to the background, and we're going to pick that image. And we're going to set it to be no repeat, and we're going to set it to be a cover like that. And you're going to go and say, well, that's okay. Look, it's gone all the way. Why did we not do that? When you go to the mobile, this will occur. So what you then have to do is go over to your container and go and set a minimum height. Now, that is okay if you want to do that. I don't always like doing that The only good thing about doing the background image is if you were going to later on drop some text over it. So I just want to show you, you could have done the image with the height, or you could have done it like this as well. At the end of the day, when you get back over, it's the same. Let's now continue. And this is now going to be really simple, easy. We are going to duplicate. We're going to go over to this second new copy one. We're going to go and adjust our margin to be about 30 like that. So we've got 30 and 30 going in. And in terms of our content that sits inside of it, and this is one of the beauties about using Flexbox, go over to your layout, and over here we can now reverse our items. So look, I click that, it reverses. And if this was a web designer portfolio, please put images in of the websites that you've created, okay? So I'm now going to create another container, but it's going to be similar to the hero banner with just a statement in the middle. So I'm actually just going to copy what we had above the hero banner, get rid of the header, get rid of the button, go to my advanced tab, set this to be in 80 so it's a bit spaced away. I'm going to go over to the child container because remember this is a child container inside. Make sure everything is centralized. At the moment it isn't, but remember that's because we had all of this going on with our percentages. So when you get rid of that, you can now see it centralizes. I'm also going to make this container be a boxed width, and I'm definitely going to go with a 500 like that. I'm going to swap out the text. I'm going to centralize it. And in terms of the background and the image, make sure you're on the child container. Let's swap the image out. And I'm going to go with that image there. Top center works better. Cover, no repeat. Background overlay, it's actually just going to be one color. So it's going to be that color there. We're going to drop the opacity to be something like that. And rather than have normal, I'm going to go with multiply because it kind of blends in a little bit nicer like that. Let's just go and check how that looks on the tablet or the mobile. You can see here that at the moment it's bringing forward our other image. So if we go to background, remember we swapped it out. So I'm going to delete that image and now it reverts back to the image we brought through. Again, I would recommend you go and pop in a different image if you care for page speed performance, but for the purpose of what I'm doing here at the moment, I'm just going to adjust this really quickly by getting rid of those percentages that we had before. I will, however, just pop this onto Pixel and say, give me about 40 and 40. So it does bring it in a bit. But as far as this entire child container goes, I'm going to drop the height of it to be something like, I think 30 VH works pretty okay. So we have a nice bit of a quote coming in like that. Now, you may decide we've got image and we got another image kicking in. Do I really want to keep that? If you didn't want to suddenly have this image visible on the mobile, just go to the container, go to the advanced tab, go to where it says responsive and say hide on the mobile. And then this is what you would get. Basically, you wouldn't see it. That will be disappeared, but you will have a big gap over here. So if I go to this container, I'm now going to switch this out to be about 30 from the top like that. And let's just double check what happens over here. That's actually looking okay still. So in terms of the flow, that is perfectly fine. We go over, we still have the 80 there. We still have the image visible. Now, the final thing I'm going to do here, because like we are practically done, is just copy over this entire container, paste it in below like that. I'm going to have an 80 gap from the top, just so it's nicely spaced out from the hero banner there. But I'm just going to double check that 30 is actually okay. Is that okay? Yeah, it's okay, fine. Yeah, let's just scroll back down. So you can see how by having bits of white over a grey background, it starts to make it easier on the eye to read, right? Let's just swap this image out. Let's go with him on a phone like that. And I'm going to make sure that this is set to be more of a center right. There we go, because he's more in the center like that. And then get rid of the text over here, drop in a form. Now, I'm not going to spend time going over every intricate detail of the form, okay? You would obviously, you know, pop in your fields, phone number, how big is the message box going to be? You know, where do the emails go, which is the action? So is it going to take them to another page, or, you know, will it go to your MailChimp MailerLite account? And get rid of the label. In terms of my button, I'm just going to left align it, and I'm just going to quickly stylize the button. It's not a bad idea to stick in your social icons. Let's just make that be transparent. Add in a bit of breathing space away from the social icons. What we have is like a one-page design that we've built really, really quickly with Elementor, and I hope you like it. How does that look on the mobile? It looks pretty okay. I mean, I haven't adjusted the space completely here. I would probably make that be a 30. You'll notice though the image is not appearing. Remember, that's because on the mobile, we said make this be not visible because I did it to the previous section. So go back to the response and I'm now going to show it. So when we go over here, you will now see the image appear. And you might want to have the image above or below. It's entirely up to you. This is a great way of creating a responsive website. And look at the size of these fonts. You see how the fonts are growing and shrinking, whereas down here, they're kind of set in stone. So you may want to have a think about the particular layout you want to go for. Hey, look, I hope you liked that. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let people know about the video. And I hope I see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change.